Rhodes was found shot at the Queen of Hearts pub on East Livingston Avenue, along with two other women after a fight broke out. A 17-year-old girl was shot and listed in critical condition, while a 42-year-old woman is expected to survive.
The sound of laughter, the hum of a car engine, the faint glow of streetlights breaking through a warm summer night. For 17-year-old Katera Griffin and her friend Shamira Rhodes, it was just another evening in Columbus, Ohio, a night filled with the simple joys of friendship, youth, and plans for tomorrow. But tomorrow would never come. In the quiet hours along East Livingston Avenue, the world they knew would shatter. Gunfire erupted, sudden, violent, and irreversible. Within moments, two young women full of life, dreams, and unspoken promises were gone. And in that instant, the lives of their families, friends, and community were forever divided into before and after. Shamira Rhodes was more than just a name in a headline. She was a daughter, a friend, a vibrant soul whose presence lit up the room. Katera Griffin, just 17, was the kind of friend who showed up for you, no matter what. Their bond was deep, the kind that made their loved ones believe they'd grow old sharing milestones together. But that night, as they sat together in a car, someone made a choice that cannot be undone. Shots were fired, glass shattered, and panic rippled through the streets. Neighbors would later recall the chilling silence that followed, the kind of stillness that tells you something terrible has happened. When police arrived, they were met with a scene no first responder ever wants to face. Two young lives were cut short, their future stolen in the blink of an eye. The flashing lights of patrol cars painted the street red and blue, but there was no way to bring back what had been lost. News spread quickly. For those who loved Shamira and Katera, disbelief was the first reaction. How could two women so full of life, so close to their next chapter, be gone in an instant? How could violence find them in such an ordinary, familiar place? In the days that followed, grief would sweep through Columbus like a heavy fog. Friends clung to old photos and text messages. Families replayed their last conversations, holding on to every word, every laugh, as if that could somehow keep the memories alive. But behind the heartbreak lies a deeper story. A story about friendship, resilience, and the haunting ripple effects of gun violence. This is the story of Shamira Rhodes and Katera Griffin. And tonight, we walk through the moments that led to tragedy, the questions that remain, and the voices fighting to make sure their names are never forgotten. Shamira Rhodes was the kind of young woman whose presence lit up a room. At just 17 years old, she carried herself with maturity beyond her years, yet still had the sparkle of a teenager chasing dreams. Friends recall her as quick to laugh, fiercely loyal, and always ready to step in when someone needed help. She loved music, fashion, and the thrill of planning for the future, a future that tragically never came. Katera Griffin, also 17, shared that same vibrant energy. She was known for her fearless personality, someone who could make you laugh even in the most difficult moments. Her family describes her as strong-willed, confident, and deeply caring. A young woman who protected the people she loved with her whole heart. In so many ways, Katera was a reminder that life, even at a young age, can be lived with boldness and purpose. The friendship between Shamira and Katera was built on a foundation of shared experiences. Growing up in the same city, they navigated the ups and downs of teenage life together. The late-night phone calls, the deep talks about dreams and fears, and the moment of pure joy that only best friends can share. They weren't just friends. They were more like sisters, bound by trust and time. Those who knew them say they were each other's safe place. If one was struggling, the other was right there to listen, without judgment. They celebrated birthdays together, leaned on each other after breakups, and encouraged one another to stay focused on school and goals. To see one without the other was rare. They moved through life side by side. Despite their youth, both Shamira and Katera carried ambitions that reached far beyond the neighborhood streets. Shamira dreamed of building a career that allowed her to help others, possibly in healthcare or community work. Katera was determined to make her mark as well, with a fearless belief in her ability to succeed. The two often spoke about their futures as if they were guaranteed. Because when you're 17, the world still feels full of endless possibilities. Family members described their home lives as full of love and pride, even if challenges existed along the way. Both girls were deeply loved daughters, nieces, cousins, and friends. Their parents and relatives had hopes of seeing them graduate high school, step into adulthood, and build lives filled with joy and purpose. It's that image of possibility, of two young women just starting to write their life stories, that makes what happened all the more devastating. Shamira and Katera had no way of knowing that a single night in Columbus, Ohio, would become the tragic end to everything they had planned and dreamed of. Their story, like too many others, is a reminder of how fragile life can be. It was a warm July evening in Columbus, Ohio, the kind of summer night when the streets still hummed with life well past sunset. Friends were out laughing, cars rolled by with music spilling from open windows, and for many, it was just another ordinary night. But for 17-year-old Katera Griffin and her close friend Shamira Rhodes, it would become the last night they would ever share. They were together, spending time as teenagers do, talking, laughing, and making plans for the future, completely unaware that danger was lurking nearby. Shortly after 10 p.m., the pair were near East Livingston Avenue, a familiar area where people in the neighborhood often gathered. But that night, the air felt tense. A series of gunshots suddenly shattered the summer calm, ripping to the sound of distant chatter and passing cars. In those terrifying seconds, everything changed. The laughter was gone, replaced by screams and the chaos of people running for cover. Shamira and Katera were caught in the deadly spray of bullets. They weren't armed. They weren't part of any argument. They were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, victims of a senseless act of violence that cared nothing for innocence or youth. As the shots rang out, witnesses said it felt like the world stood still, then exploded into panic. When the shooting stopped, the street fell into an eerie silence except for the frantic shouts of those calling for help. Both young women had been critically wounded. Those who knew them rushed to their sides, desperately trying to keep them awake until paramedics arrived. For Shamira and Katera, there was no time to process what had happened, only the searing pain and confusion as life slipped away. Emergency crews responded within minutes, loading them into ambulances and rushing them to the hospital. Family members and friends gathered outside, clinging to hope that they would pull through. But as the hours passed, the devastating truth became clear. Shamira and Katera's lives had been cut short in an instant, leaving a void too deep to measure. The news spread quickly through Columbus, hitting those who loved them like a punch to the chest. Social media lit up with messages of shock, grief, and disbelief. How could two young lives, filled with so much promise, be taken so suddenly and so brutally?
Back to that deadly bar shooting from over the weekend. 10 Investigates has learned the city's attorney's office now planning to take legal action against the bar and property owners.
And according to records, the bar had a court order to cut back on hours, hire security, and restrict who could come in. Here's Chief Investigative Reporter Bennett Haverly with what else he's uncovered. Bennett?
Yolanda, the city attorney's office says even though the bar has changed ownership and its name, that venue is still subject to that court order from February that would have limited hours and require security in place. That's why they plan to ask a judge to hold the bar and the property owners in contempt. This weekend shooting at the Queen of Hearts pub up East Livingston claimed the life of 30-year-old Shamira Rhodes. Those who knew her described her as charismatic, a mother, a hairdresser, an entertainer. Her friends say they're struggling with the loss.
Her life was just cut down tragically, and it overwhelmed everyone who's involved in it. It is honestly something that we never expected to come in contact with. It is overwhelming, truly. Like, she has 3 children.
Tiara Walton described herself as Shamira's sister. While the two aren't blood related, she says she's helping raise one of Shamira's children and is now helping to plan her funeral. Walton says there was an altercation before this weekend shooting. Columbus police would now like the public's help identifying these women who were in the bar early Sunday morning.
Where she was in that moment does not define who she was as a person or character or how this case should be looked at.
This is unacceptable. And anything that I can do, as I've told the family, as I've told other people, to push back against gun violence, I'm going to continue to do. This was just too much for me.
State Representative Latina Humphrey says she was friends with Shamira and has known her for 18 years. She says this weekend's shooting is a reminder of the current ease placed on gun restrictions and a lack of conflict resolution skills among people.
I don't care what the disagreement was, it didn't need to end in death.
Court records show the city attorney's office had taken legal action against the bar's previous owner, which compelled it to reduce its hours, hire security, and not allow anyone to enter under the age of 30. A clause in the document also states if there's a violation, the court may further close and board up the storefront. That holds true for the previous bar owner or its successor.
You can't just start shutting down all the bars because there is crime out there in the streets.
Attorney Jim Andrioff used to represent the bar's owner when it was called the Pelican Club. He says the city attorney's efforts to restrict or shut down certain bars after shootings won't quell future violence. Just send it elsewhere.
It just doesn't make any sense. It's never going to end.
But don't they bear some responsibility for what happens at their bar or their business?
There's no question that they bear responsibility for what happens at their bar. But if you're a business owner and you're trying to prevent things from happening by getting security detail or getting police, there's a big difference between getting Columbus Police as security versus a private security company that doesn't get the same training.
Shamira Rhodes' friends say everyone bears some responsibility.
We're not removing any blame. We're not saying that, that it's entirely their fault. But what we are saying is everyone needs to play the role that they need to play and to stop these things from happening.
And tonight we've been unable to reach the current bar owner despite phone calls and 2 emails sent today. We're also hoping to get a response from the city attorney's office and the Columbus Police about their efforts in working with some of these establishments and the enforcements there. We'll provide an update when we hear back. Yolanda?
For many, it wasn't just a crime. It was a shattering of the sense of safety in their community. By the next morning, flowers, candles, and handwritten notes began to appear at the scene of the shooting. The makeshift memorial grew as friends, neighbors, and even strangers came to pay their respects. They stood in silence, tears slipping down faces, as they tried to make sense of the senseless. That night on East Livingston Avenue became more than just another incident in the city's ongoing struggle with gun violence. It became a tragic reminder of how quickly joy can turn into sorrow, and how the lives of 2 young women could be forever etched into the heart of a grieving community. From the very beginning, investigators in Columbus face a race against time. 2 young lives have been taken in a senseless act of violence, and the community demanded answers. Police quickly secured the crime scene on East Livingston Avenue, collecting shell casings, examining bullet trajectories, and interviewing potential witnesses. The area was a patchwork of flashing lights and yellow tape, but beyond the chaos was a meticulous process. Detectives piecing together fragments of the night to form a picture of what truly happened. Witness accounts began to emerge, some describing the sound of multiple gunshots piercing the night, others recalling seeing a vehicle speeding away moments later. But in communities rocked by violence, fear often keeps lips sealed. Detectives knew they needed not just statements, but solid, irrefutable evidence, something that would hold up in court. Surveillance cameras in nearby businesses and residences became crucial leads. Each frame reviewed brought them closer to identifying suspects and uncovering the events that led to the shooting. As the investigation unfolded, patterns began to emerge. Detectives considered whether the shooting was targeted or the result of a heated dispute that spiraled out of control. They explored possible connections, friendships, conflicts, or community disputes that might link the victims to the shooter. In cases like this, every detail matters. Text messages, social media activity, and phone records were combed through for clues that could reveal a motive. The police also worked closely with community members, appealing to their sense of justice. Press conferences were held, urging anyone with information come forward. While some tips proved to be dead ends, others offered vital threads that investigators could pull on. Slowly but surely, the pieces of the puzzle were aligning, though the full picture was still incomplete. In the meantime, the loss of Shamira Rhodes and Katera Griffin weighed heavily on everyone involved in the case. Detectives weren't just solving crime. They were standing in the gap for 2 young women who could no longer speak for themselves. Every shred of evidence was treated not just as a legal necessity, but as a moral obligation to bring closure to grieving families. Legal proceedings in cases like this are often a marathon, not a sprint. Even once suspects are identified and charges filed, the road to trial can take months, sometimes years, of preparation. Prosecutors must ensure that the case is airtight, with every piece of evidence meticulously documented and every witness prepared to testify. Defense attorneys, in turn, scrutinize the investigation for weaknesses, seeking any opportunity to cast doubt. Ultimately, the investigation and legal process are about more than punishment. They're about accountability and truth. For the families of Shamira and Katera, justice cannot bring their loved ones back, but it can affirm that their lives mattered and that their deaths will not simply fade into another statistic. In the courtroom, the facts will be laid bare, and the hope is that the truth, no matter how painful, will finally be heard. The loss of Shamira Rhodes and Katera Griffin rippled far beyond the scene of the shooting. Friends, relatives, and neighbors struggled to process the reality that two bright, young lives had been extinguished in such a senseless act of violence. For many, it wasn't just a loss that hurt. It was the way it happened. The suddenness, the brutality, and the fact that it took place on an ordinary night made it even harder to comprehend. Conversations around kitchen tables and on front porches were filled with disbelief, grief, and a desperate need to make sense of the tragedy. Those closest to Shamira and Katera remembered them not as crime statistics, but as vibrant human beings with laughter that could light up a room. Their absence left an irreplaceable void in family gatherings and social circles. For their mothers, the pain was immeasurable, a wound that would never truly heal. Every holiday, birthday, and milestone would forever be marked by the presence of an empty seat. Friends spoke of shared dreams and plans of future that would now remain unfulfilled, and the weight of those stolen possibilities pressed heavily on everyone's hearts. Community members also voiced their anger. This was not just about losing two young women. It was about the ongoing cycle of gun violence that seemed to grip the area. Residents spoke passionately about the need for change, sharing fears for their own children's safety. Candlelight vigils turned into both spaces for mourning and platforms for demanding action. Standing in the soft glow of flickering flames, people cried, prayed, and embraced, united in grief but also in a shared plea for justice and prevention. At one vigil, a longtime friend of Katera's described her as loyal to the bone and someone who would always stand by her loved ones, no matter the circumstances. Another recalled Shamira's endless patience and her uncanny ability to calm any tense situation. These were not fleeting, casual friendships. They were bonds built over years, now severed in an instant. The memories shared painted a vivid picture of two young women full of love, humor, and potential, and made the tragedy feel even more profound. Faith leaders also stepped forward to comfort the community, offering words of hope and healing. Churches opened their doors for prayer services and counseling sessions. Pastors and community organizers spoke about the urgent need to guide young people away from violence, providing them with safe spaces, mentorship, and opportunities for growth. These gatherings, though solemn, gave many a sense of solidarity, proof that no one was alone in their grief. For Shamira and Katera's families, speaking out was both painful and necessary. They wanted the world to know who their daughters truly were, beyond the headlines and police reports. They shared stories about their favorite meals, their quirks, and the way their eyes lit up when they were happy. In doing so, they ensured that the girls' legacies were not defined by the violence that claimed them, but by the love they gave and the joy they spread during their time on Earth. The community's response became a testament to the strength found in unity. While nothing could undo the tragedy, the voices that rose in the aftermath served as a powerful reminder. Shamira and Katera mattered. Their lives had value. Their dreams had meaning, and their loss would not be forgotten. It was a collective promise that their stories would live on and that their memory would be a call to protect others from meeting the same fate. The tragic loss of Shamira Rhodes and Katera Griffin underscores a painful truth. Gun violence isn't just a statistic. It's a relentless force that rips through families, friendships, and entire communities. In cities across America, lives are being cut short before they've even had the chance to fully begin. This case is not an isolated event. It's part of a larger pattern that demands our attention and action. For many residents of Columbus, this tragedy is a gut-wrenching reminder that no neighborhood, no matter how familiar, is completely shielded from the devastating reach of senseless violence. Gun violence doesn't just claim lives, it also steals futures. Shamira and Katera were young women with bright paths ahead, dreams they were eager to chase, and relationships they were still building. When a life ends suddenly, it leaves behind unfinished chapters, and those left grieving are forced to live with the haunting what-ifs. Their loss is now woven into the lives of those who love them, changing the way birthdays, holidays, and even ordinary days are felt forever. This tragedy also shines a spotlight on the urgent need for preventative measures. From community outreach to stronger violence intervention programs, there are ways to disrupt cycles of crime before they escalate to deadly encounters. But such efforts require resources, collaboration, and most importantly, the collective will to see change happen. Communities often know their challenges better than anyone else. They just need the tools and support to address them head-on. The story of Shamira and Katera also highlights the critical role of youth engagement. Too often, young people grow up in environments where violence becomes normalized, without alternatives, mentorship, or opportunities to break free from harmful influences. These cycles repeat. Their deaths force us to ask the difficult question, what could have been done differently to prevent this? And more importantly, what can we do now to keep it from happening to another family? Public awareness is key. When tragedies like this fade from the headlines, the urgency to act can fade too. But for families and friends of the victims, the pain doesn't fade. It remains a constant presence. That's why telling these stories matters. They keep the victims' memories alive, inspire advocacy, and remind people that behind every headline is a human life lost too soon. The need for action isn't just about reducing crime statistics. It's about protecting human potential. Shamira and Katera deserve to live, to love, and to grow old. They deserve to see their goals realized, to travel new roads, and to celebrate milestones. Each act of awareness, each community meeting, and each policy change aimed at preventing violence is a step toward honoring their memory in a way that's truly meaningful. In the end, the murders of Shamira Rhodes and Katera Griffin are not just tragedies. They're calls to action. They compel us to examine our communities, our policies, and our priorities. And while nothing can undo the pain of their loss, change is still possible. But it will only happen if we refuse to look away, if we speak out, and if we work together to build a future where stories like theirs are no longer part of our reality. The heartbreaking murders of Shamira Rhodes and Katera Griffin are more than just another crime statistic. They are a wake-up call for all of us. These were two young women with dreams, families, and communities that loved them deeply. Their loss leaves an emptiness that can't be measured, but also leaves us with responsibility to act. It's not enough to feel sad or angry. We have to channel that energy into meaningful change, because doing nothing means allowing tragedies like this to happen again. Gun violence is not a distant problem. It's here, in our neighborhoods, our schools, and sometimes even among the people we know. The reality is, many communities like the one Shamira and Katera called home have been sounding the alarm for years. They've been asking for better youth outreach programs, mental health resources, and stronger community policing efforts. Their pleas are urgent, and now, after losing 2 more young lives, the need has never been clearer. One of the most powerful ways to honor Shamira and Katera is by getting involved locally. Attend town hall meetings. Support community-led organizations that work to prevent gun violence. Volunteer at youth programs that offer mentorship and safe spaces for teenagers. Small actions may not seem like much, but when many people take them together, the effect can be transformative. We also can't underestimate the role of having tough conversations within our families, among our friends, and in our neighborhoods. Talking openly about conflict resolution, peer pressure, and the dangers of carrying weapons can literally save lives. These conversations aren't always comfortable, but silence only feeds the cycle of violence. We have to be willing to speak, to listen, and to educate. Supporting the families left behind is another crucial step. Beyond the initial wave of condolences, grieving families often face overwhelming financial and emotional struggles. Fundraisers, meal trains, and simple acts of kindness can help lighten their load as they navigate the impossible task of living without their loved ones. Standing by them long after the news coverage fades is one of the greatest gifts we can offer. Shamira and Katera's deaths should not be in vain. Their stories deserve to be remembered, not just as victims of a shooting, but as vibrant young women whose lives were stolen too soon. Let their names be a rallying cry for safer streets, better opportunities for youth, and stronger bonds within our communities. And so, as we close this chapter of their story, we must ask ourselves, what will we do next? Will we scroll past, shake our heads, and move on? Or will we stand up, speak out, and work toward a future where no more mothers have to bury their daughters because of senseless violence? The answer lies in our hands, and the time to act is now. As we come to the end of this story, the names Shamira Rhodes and Katera Griffin should not fade into the noise of daily headlines. They were young women with vibrant futures, cherished by family, loved by friends, and deserving of every opportunity life could offer. Their lives were stolen in a moment of violence, but their memories deserve to live on in our hearts and in our actions. Remembering them means committing to a world where such senseless tragedies are no longer acceptable. This case is not just about two victims. It is about the ripples of pain that flow outward to mothers, fathers, siblings, friends, and even strangers who feel the weight of the loss. In each tear shed, in every candle lit of vigil, and every story told about them, we see the deep impact they had in their short time on earth. That's why we tell their story, so their light is not extinguished by the darkness of that night. But reflection isn't just about remembering. It's about learning. What happened to Shamira and Katera forces us to confront hard truths about community safety, conflict resolution, and the urgency of addressing violence before it escalates. We cannot bring them back, but we can make choices that might save others from the same fate. There's a saying, the dead leave lessons for the living. The lesson here is that every life matters, every conflict can be approached differently, and every community has the power to protect its own. This isn't just a story to listen to. It's a call to take action in our own lives, to look out for one another, and to speak up when something feels wrong. As you reflect on this tragedy, think about the ways you can be part of the change. Whether it's mentoring youth, supporting local initiatives against gun violence, or simply being there for someone in need, each act of kindness is a step toward preventing another loss like this. For Shamira and Katera, justice may be a matter for the courts, but true justice goes beyond punishment. True justice is a future where no mother has to bury her daughter because of senseless violence. It's a future we have to build together, piece by piece, through empathy, action, and awareness. We hope their story has touched you, opened your heart, and perhaps shifted your perspective. If you take one thing away from this video, let it be that change is possible, but it requires all of us. Every voice, every hand, every heart matters in this fight. So let's make sure their names live on, not only in memory, but in the lives we help save moving forward. Share their story, keep the conversation going, and let their legacy be one of inspiration, courage, and hope. If this story moved you, please like this video to help it reach more people. Comment your thoughts and tributes to Shamira and Katera. Share it so their story is not forgotten. And subscribe to our channel for more in-depth true crime stories that shine a light on the victims and the lessons we can all learn.